Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unexpected Goals. Crystal Palace, for the first time in their 164-year club history, have won a major trophy over Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. This is the first time since his first season in 2016-2017 where Pep Guardiola has gone trophyless at Manchester City. So how exactly did Crystal Palace pull this off? Well, let's just go ahead and dive in and take a deeper look. So right away in the first half, the clear game plan from Crystal Palace was we are going to defend in a 5-2-3, which looks like this, and we are going to sit in this, and we are going to make sure that Manchester City cannot play through the middle. And of course, we know what we know about Pep Guardiola from all of his years is he wants his teams to play through the middle. Now, I'm going to show you the starting 11 here because it was different from what City's starting 11 was when they played Crystal Palace and beat them 5-2 in April. As you can see, they started Jeremy Doku and Savinho. In the previous match, they did not start either of those guys. So the clear game plan here was, all right, we know Crystal Palace is going to defend very, very compact. So let's put both of our wingers, who are incredibly good at taking defenders on 1v1, get them on the field and try to get them into 1v1 situations. Now, City for most of the match was building out in a 3-3-4. And the purpose of the 3-3-4 was, as you can see, they would move Nico O'Reilly into a kind of inverted type into the left half space, and they could maintain a 6v5 through Palace's first two defensive lines. And what it also did is because Holland most of the time was getting doubled, it allowed Jeremy Doku and both Savinho to be 1v1 against the fullbacks. And what it also does here in this type of scenario is while you do leave space out wide here because you're inverting Nico O'Reilly, to potentially allow Munoz to get behind, which is how Palace scored their first goal. What you're doing essentially is you're asking a question of Crystal Palace's fullbacks because we know with Crystal Palace that they like to build out in a 3-2-5. And the whole purpose of the 3-2-5 is to allow their fullbacks to get forward so they can overload the last line of defense and their fullbacks can provide that width and send in crosses, right? Well, your fullbacks have to be very cautious if both of those wingers are on the pitch. If they're not, and it's just, it's like from the previous meeting where it was Nico O'Reilly and Matheus Nunes as you being the players providing that type of width, and they don't have to really worry about that. And they can get forward and they can cause a lot of problems. But here they have to remain a little bit cautious. Now, anytime Doku touched the ball, as you can see here, he was doubled. But he still completed 5 of his 9 dribbles, which is about what he averages per 90 this season. He actually did create a couple dangerous chances. But Palace got the lone goal of the match, just a proper sucker punch. It was beautiful to see. I mean, sometimes when you watch a football match, especially, a cup final like this where there's a clear underdog, I mean, City just, I don't know what their field tilt was before this, but it had to be like 95%. I don't think Palace, this maybe might have been Palace's first touch inside of City's half of the field, but for pretty much, the entire match, Palace didn't even try and build out. They just sent the ball long and said, we're going to try to win aerial duels. We're going to try to win second balls. And here they did. Mateta came down with it. He got the ball. I think it was to Kamada. And basically, he was able to play Munoz in behind. And as you can see from this image here, Nico O'Reilly, because he was operating in that left half space, he was not aware of Munoz making this just crazy, bombing run down the right here. And of course, the space is open, so Mateta is able to play him in. And you can see O'Reilly was behind Munoz. He's able to swing, get the ball in. It goes past Mateta right to Eze, and Palace goes up 1-0. And that ended up being the only goal. But really, throughout the rest of the first half, and more importantly, the rest of the match, Palace defended brilliantly in their low block, and they really cut off any type of central area where Manchester City tried to play through. Here's the pass map from Mark Stats. It's like a perfect U, honestly, and it's just City circulating the ball from left to right, maintaining a good rest defense, making sure that Crystal Palace could not break out. But as you can see here, Holland and Marmoush got isolated. They were not really involved in build-up and really involved in the attack that much. So that is basically what happened. And then, City got incredibly cheap penalty in the first half, but Dean Henderson, who had the game of his life, 6 saves per 1 point, I believe 1.78 worth of XG prevented. Incredible performance from him. He'll go down in Crystal Palace folklore forever. Great save of Marmoush on the penalty, and it kept Crystal Palace at 1-0. Now, right away when we got into the second half, City started to get the ball to Savinho. Just started getting to him and just said, you know what, let's just go try to win the 1v1s and just send a cross in. Savinho had 3 accurate crosses in the match. That was the most of any City player. He attempted 12. And obviously since Holland is back in the lineup, you have an aerial threat in the box that you can swing the ball into. So you can see here that he gets isolated against Mitchell 1v1. He beats him to the byline and he sends in a cross, and Chris Richard ends up coming up with the win of the aerial duel and actually getting the ball clear. So what was City's solution, right? Because outside of getting the ball 1v1 to their wingers, they can't play through the middle. So what are we going to do? Well, Bernardo Silva and both Kevin De Bruyne would trade off and start dropping into the last line to essentially get somebody more, one of their better passers on the ball. So you can see here, Silva drops in, and essentially what it became is a 4-6. Savino's out of the picture here in this shot, but essentially became a 4-6, and basically the goal was to say, all right, let's try to overload Palace's last line of defense. But as you can see, Palace brought Lerma on, and they essentially switched to essentially a 4-6. They essentially switched to a back six themselves. Essentially, it basically became a 6-2-2 for the remainder of the match. And really what happened for the final, I mean, City had nothing. They really couldn't generate anything and it was honestly, it was weird because they were so risk averse of just taking a chance on some risky passes. And I understand the space wasn't there. And for whatever reason, Pep Guardiola was so worried about getting hit in transition. When it got down to the end, I mean, they weren't really sending in that many accurate crosses. They weren't taking that many chances of just trying to make passes through the middle. And in the end, you can see here, this is from FOTMob, 0.78 expected goals in the second half from 15 shots. That is incredibly inefficient, most of them coming from outside the box. So, there's not really a lot of deep tactical analysis here. It's more or less Palace sat in a low block and City had no answer of finding a way through it because honestly, I think they were a little risk averse and a little bit scared of getting hit in transition. But also, you have to commend Crystal Palace. So I know people in the end will see the final XG and it'll be 2.2 for City, and I think it was zero point 0.7 for Crystal Palace. And you'll say, oh my gosh, City totally unlucky to lose the FA Cup final. And in a sense, yeah, they created more chances and they maybe deserved to actually score, but a lot of those chances were low quality, and it's a cup final. So once Palace went ahead, they just sat back and they defended brilliantly for all 100 minutes. And what they did an outstanding job of is box defending, which is something they really struggled with in that previous meeting with Manchester City when they allowed 5 goals. They blocked 10 of City's 23 shots, and City only had a 21% accurate cross rate. And I'm not sure that I think they only completed 1 or 2 of those actual crosses of the 20 some that they tried to send in. So brilliant job from Crystal Palace defending in their penalty area. A lot of questions for Manchester City of Pep had no answer for trying to break down that low block. And for the first time in 164 years, Crystal Palace has won a major trophy. Enjoy it, South London. You deserve this one.